good afternoon, everyone. I'm LeTasha Peebles, Grant Manager on the Entrepreneurship and Innovation team with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and this is day 3 of our Ambassador Series. So as my colleagues mentioned in day 1 and 2, the MEDC Entrepreneurship and Innovation Initiative includes 21 smart zones across Michigan that provide assistance to entrepreneurs and startups. Along with the smart zones, we also have service providers that offer additional resources and support to enhance the ecosystem. So one of our partners is the Ferris Wheel, also known as 100K Ideas, a business incubator located in downtown Flint. And while I have the pleasure of interviewing 2 dynamic individuals this afternoon, I'd like to start the discussion by introducing Brandee Cooke-Brown, who currently serves as the Executive Director of 100K Ideas. So with that, Brandee, I'm going to turn it over to you just to share a little more about your background and what brought you to the Ferris Wheel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, LeTasha. So my quick background story. So I went to school. I'm actually from Michigan, so grew up in Lansing, went off to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor for college and came back home to Lansing and had the pleasure of working as a college advisor for an organization through U of M called the Mission College Advising Course. So I was very excited to be able to do that, give back to my hometown school and spend a couple of years. And it really got me into kind of the nonprofit space and understanding what that dynamic looks like. So that was a 2-year program. And then I ended up in the corporate space and learned quickly, while that is wonderful and amazing, not quite my scene. And by chance, I happened to be coming to Flint to a networking event at this newly renovated building downtown called the Ferris Wheel. And at that event is when I had the pleasure of meeting David Ola, one of the co-founders of 100K Ideas. And I simply asked the question, what is this place? What is this organization? What is happening here? And was blown away by the work that they were doing and what they were going to be building, and wanted to be a part of it instantly without hesitation. So literally was kind of a very short turnaround. I want to say like 2 to 3 weeks, and I was on my way to Flint. So it was very, very exciting for me to kind of jump in. And at that time, that was November 2017 is when the building opened and the organization was launched. And I actually joined December 2017, so roughly a month after. So right when it was still new, and have been growing with the organization since. And so I'm, very proud to be a part of this organization and continue the work we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brandee, for that background. Very excited that you were able to join the Ferris Wheel and 100K Ideas. I'm sure Flint is very happy to have you call it home. So with that, could you just provide a little more of an understanding of kind of the day-to-day process? Could you walk us through kind of the model that 100K is the example basically that it was used to create 100K Ideas?
Yeah, yep. And so I'm not sure how many were able to tune in to previous discussions with the E&I panel earlier in the week, but actually 100K was kind of born out of the idea that that was already created at Northern Michigan University called Invent at NMU. So our co-founder, who I mentioned earlier, David Ola, launched a program similar to this in conjunction with Northern Michigan University, and had some pretty cool visitors come check out the model. And it kind of led him to conversations to bring it downstate. And that's kind of the short way of describing it, with a lot of, kind of in between things. And obviously it wasn't overnight. But what happened though, is by chance, he ended up getting introduced to Phil Hagerman, a local business owner in Flint, Michigan, who had happened to purchase the now Ferris Wheel building. So the two of them got together and launched a version of Invent at NMU called 100K Ideas, which is where I work now, and also built out the Ferris Wheel building itself. So it used to actually be the last it was the Ferris Brothers Fur building downtown Flint, which a lot of people love coming into the building now that it's reopened and reminiscing about that. And which is always great to hear those stories. And so the building itself sat vacant for a long time, decades. And so they basically, the way David describes it is they went through the building, hit everything with a hammer, and if it didn't fall apart, they kept it, which was pretty much the walls and the floor and the ceilings. So they basically turned this space into what I've heard it described as kind of, a central piece to downtown Flint now, which is fantastic. So the building itself is a co-working building where people can rent offices and also just have co-working memberships when you just need to, step away from the office, or maybe, you're self-employed or a small business owner yourself and you don't necessarily want to take on the overhead of a full building. My apologies for that. You don't want to take on the overhead of having your own space. It allows new business owners to get started without kind of incurring a lot of costs, knowing that sometimes you do want to get up and get out and go to work, but maybe, again, not have the funds to kind of do it in a grand way. So the Ferris wheel is very, very helpful to those who are looking just simply to get started. And 100K complements that by being a place where individuals who don't know where to get started with their business ideas, they can come to work with us, and we simply help them flesh it out in a simple process that we like to call think, make, and market. And the way that kind of works is essentially breaking down entrepreneurship into those simple steps. So it's not so daunting. Starting a business is nothing to be taken lightly. We definitely don't underestimate how challenging or overwhelming it can be. And so we try to simplify it enough so then people feel comfortable when they come talk to us and not so overwhelmed. So we try our best to kind of make it as streamlined as possible and in a space where, eventually they see themselves also being. So, as they continue to work and progress, maybe they get a co-working membership and build into an office on one of the floors and then move their way up. And then eventually they've reached a point where they can move out of the building and, be in their own space as well. So it's kind of this whole ecosystem we've created in just one space, which we're really proud to be a part of.
Excellent. So can you speak a little bit more to that? If I have an idea and I'm just simply find out that you're located downtown and I walk through the door, what does that look like? And should I be concerned that somebody could steal my idea? What are you doing to protect what I'm bringing to you?
Yeah. So not surprisingly, we get that a lot. How our process essentially works is so people can walk in or they can schedule an appointment with us online and go to our website and do that. But right when they walk in, they'll be greeted by 2 college students. So the way our model is set up is we have a leadership team that guides our staff for the work that they're doing, but our primary operations staff, our project managers who work directly with the clients, our engineers who are building prototypes and doing CAD design, our product designers who are sketching and putting ideas to visuals, and our marketing specialists and graphic designers, they're all current students, current college students, I should say. And what's interesting about that is it helps make the process less intimidating than coming into a space where you have people in suits and are willing to talk to you about your idea, but feeling like there may be a little bit more seriousness to it. Not that it's not serious, but having kind of a college student greet you and say, hey, we understand, we're right there with you. And we have mentors who are guiding us and training us as well. It's definitely a lot easier of a space to kind of enter into and definitely less intimidating. We don't take for granted that people sharing their ideas with us is not an easy thing for them to do. I can't tell you how many people have sat down with us and said, oh man, I've had this idea in my head for 15, 20 years because they've been so fearful to share it. And so when they come in to meet with us, and actually prior to the meeting, we send them legal documents so they do feel comfortable sharing that, and all of the legal documents are in their favor. It's a client service contract letting them know they're not bound to us in any way. They can work with other organizations or companies if they would like to. And we don't take a percentage of anything. It's just simply we're a resource for them. And then the other is a non-disclosure agreement, obviously. So they know we're not sharing anything outside of our doors about about their idea without their permission. So we do sometimes say, hey, we'd love to do a client highlight. Are you comfortable? And, they're more than happy to do that. But until that moment, they're definitely under lock and key and we don't share anything. So when they come to the building to meet with us, those pieces are already taken care of. They know, hey, we're not going to share anything. There's no strings attached when working with us. And the first step of the process is literally that think piece. So we sit with them, we ask them some questions and just say, what is your idea? What are you looking to do? And the approach we take isn't necessarily simply just looking for their idea itself. We also try to break it down by problem and solution. Because while their idea may be new and fresh, there also could be another solution solving the same problem. That could be a potential barrier to enter the market. So really the way we describe is we use that meeting to try to determine what are you trying to do so we have an understanding. And then if you want to continue working with us, we know what we're looking for as well in doing research with you. So also a part of that meeting is we go Google shopping. It's surprisingly a lot of people don't take that first step to look online to see does it exist, because at that point it's real. Once you check and see like, does it already exist? Oh man, it does. So now we're done. And we definitely don't want to discourage anybody. We just simply want people to know we want you to have all the information possible to make informed decisions moving forward. And that's our biggest goal. Like we don't say good idea, bad idea. It's literally here's the information, choose, how you would like to move forward. We're here with you for that journey if you want to continue, but just some things you should know. And so that meeting culminates into, for those who like to move forward, and there are some who don't, we find what they're looking for and they decide, okay, I'm good, I'm ready to move on. But for those who do, we put together an assessment binder for them. And so in that process, which is also under that Think umbrella, is we give them benchmark information, we give them some patent and trademark research that we do, which the disclosure is we are not attorneys. So if we do find anything, you'll want to consult with one just to be sure that it's not a conflict for you. We do some marketing analytics, financial projections for them. And really the big thing that we close out with are next steps. So we lead with the premise of not giving people a list of 20, but instead we look at probably 2 to 3 things they can do right now at this moment when they leave our doors to move it forward. And we find that simplifying it allows people to feel like things are more attainable versus it being this overwhelming list of things and they're not sure how to attack it. And from there, we present the binder once it's done. And we move on to that make umbrella. And that's where a lot of our, engineering and designer students come into play, where they help with a range of services to help them move forward. And we're also very transparent if something's not in our wheelhouse or, they've evolved past our services. We're very open with people moving on to other resources in our community to help them do that. And so what I think is fantastic about Flint in general is there's a ton of resources for entrepreneurs who are looking to get started. And we do our best to make sure people know about them and refer them as needed. So that way, they're not feeling, again, they're not tied to us anyway. We want to see them be successful as well. So, so that's kind of how that process essentially works.
Excellent, Brandee. Thank you so much. So one of the things that you noted on that I think is key is that you guys really do a lot of due diligence as it pertains to helping the entrepreneur and helping somebody who just simply has an idea. Could you kind of expound a little more on your community engagement and how you have made your services available to people outside of the Flint downtown area?
Yeah, yep. So similar to other areas, and I'm sure Detroit has experienced some of this as well. Once you start kind of building up Flint or downtown areas, in general, people from the community start to feel like it may not be a place for them, even though that's completely false. We open our doors to everybody, but we also know sometimes getting to downtown can be a barrier. So what we work to do, and what we worked with the community to do, is open what we call office hour locations at 2 community centers on the north side of Flint. So prior to COVID-19, we were accepting walk-in appointments once a week at a place called the Flint Development Center, and then also Burston Fieldhouse. And so I'm not sure anybody's familiar with Flint, but those are two pretty landmark community centers on the north side that we're very excited to be able to partner with. And we are there available for people to walk in, even if they maybe don't want to bring their idea at that point. We're just there for them to ask questions to and have that presence. And so we're excited also that in the fall, we're going to be launching a third, well, COVID dependent, a third office hour location on the east side in partnership with the Latinx Technology and Community Center. So really trying to expand our reach in the community, knowing, downtown is fantastic. We love our space, but also we know not everybody can get to us there. So how do we expand ourselves and make our services more accessible?
Excellent, excellent. So making it an equitable playing field for all.
Yep.
I love it. So going along with that, one of the primary factors for entrepreneurs in terms of success is being able to have access to adequate funding. So could you speak briefly to 100K Ventures and how that came about?
Yeah, yep. So for those not familiar, 100K Ventures is a venture capital fund that was started specifically to help support ideas coming out of 100K ideas. And so I want to say early 2018, shortly after the building had opened and 100K had launched, Congressman Dan Kildee hosted a road show, a Midwest road tour with Congressman Ro Khanna from California and Tim Ryan from Ohio. And they were doing kind of this tour around the Midwest. So it wasn't just simply, Flint was on the list, but it was like they had stopped in Ohio and Indiana to see different areas in entrepreneurship because so much focus had been on Silicon Valley. And investing was so focused on that area because it kind of was the hot spot. And what these congressmen and their partners wanted to show is that, hey, innovation's happening in the Midwest as well. Let's check it out. And so they stopped by the Ferris wheel and had a fantastic talk, learning about 100K ideas, the Ferris wheel, and all of the things that were happening in Flint around entrepreneurship and innovation. And literally one of the founders of the funds was like, hey, I forgot how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, but literally like in the middle of the room was just like, I pledge this to support ideas. And what that did was it kind of, and actually, let me go back. So on addition on the tour, there were also venture capitalists from across the country. So that's an important piece to note. So one of the venture capitalists that were a part of the tour made this proclamation during the visit, which was amazing. And we were like, oh, wow. So people want to fund ideas. All right, let's do this. And so from there, they started this group called 100K Ventures. And so some notable investors include Soledad O'Brien, Michael Strahan, Victor Cruz. And there's a number there, and I don't want to list too many because I will forget if I try to do all of them. But they're literally committed. So the first person to receive an investment from them was a young woman named Kiera Tyler with Calm Clothing. And so Kiera actually came to us, and her story is amazing. She came to us already an established business, which happens quite a bit. But she hadn't quite organized her back end. She just was a natural entrepreneur that learned how to manufacture and receive, her products, which is a clothing line from overseas, got them here, designed them, got them manufactured overseas, back here and sold, and was doing really well for herself without any back end operations and organization. So that's primarily what we ended up helping her build out. And because her story is so compelling and just kind of that natural spirit she had, she was the first person that we presented to 100K Venture saying, hey, I think you have something. So we were able to get her investment from them. And I believe we're close to also announcing a second recipient of funding from 100K Ventures. So we'll hopefully see that in the next few weeks. So we're really excited about that and that investment just to support those ideas.
Great news. Again, it just seems like your story gets better and better. So part of what makes a successful ecosystem is having people collaborate and work together. So can you speak a little bit to that and some of your collaboration with other smart zones and entrepreneurial service providers across the state?
Yeah, yep. I think what makes 100K Ideas unique in kind of the smart zone space is because we're so early in the process that it's made us appealing to other partners in the smart zone when people come to us and say, hey, I have an idea. Can you help me? And they're like, okay, so you're a little too early, but we do have a place for you that can help you. And so we have a great referral system with Lawrence Tech University's and I'm gonna Centropolis. There it is. I should have wrote that down. Centropolis Center and Lean Rocket Lab in Detroit or Jackson, excuse me, in Jackson, Michigan, and Ann Arbor Spark, just to name a couple that we've collaborated with, and it's been like kind of a mutual referral relationship. So they may have somebody that comes to them really early in the process. They still need some help to kind of flesh out what they're looking to do, and they'll say, "Hey, you should really reach out to 100K Ideas." And so we follow up with them, we help them with their binder, and from there they take that information back, say, hey, I've got it figured out, and they're able to kind of enter those programs and help move it forward. And then also on the other hand of that, when we have clients who have matured to a point where, again, we're not shy about referring people to other organizations that can definitely keep them moving, we definitely call on our partners. So for instance, we have a project right now that we're working with LTU on, simply because he matured past what our capabilities are, and we thought that they would be a perfect fit. So they've been working together quite a bit and moving that forward. And so we always do kind of some check-ins here and, making sure, things are still moving. And if we're needed, we're happy to step in and provide some guidance. But yeah, so we love that collaboration, that ecosystem, and being a part of it. Because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, is just helping people have their businesses come to life, and whoever can do that, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. So speaking of collaboration and success, I'd like to give you, Brandee, an opportunity to introduce the next speaker to our audience.
Yeah, so the next speaker, Mr. Peter Deppe, I always share a story about him simply because he has an interesting kind of relationship to everything that I just talked about. So Peter actually first came on 100K's radar as one of our student employees. So he applied for a position as an electrical engineer. And in his interview, we knew he was going to advance beyond us very quickly. He made it extremely clear he's studying electrical engineering, but he does not want to be an electrical engineer. But he had a plan, and he didn't quite know what would be built, which he'll talk about shortly. But you could see it was happening, and it was going to happen. And really, his spirit was amazing. And so he's kind of evolved, obviously, past being a student into also a client and also a member of the Ferris wheel building. So with that, I'll let Peter kind of talk more about his journey there. But Peter Deppe to talk about Kuhmute.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brandee. Thank you, LeTasha. And thanks everyone for joining and hopping on this call today. I guess a little bit about me. I know Brandee kind of gave you a little intro. I was a student at 100K Ideas. I'm a recent graduate from Kettering University, just down the street here in Flint, Michigan. And like Brandee said, my background is in electrical engineering. And I guess the whole series of events, how this kind of went down is, and how I went down this entrepreneurial path is I met with a mentor consistently to really see if I was, built for the challenge of starting a business and seeing what I could start. And at that same time, I was bouncing around internships, trying to figure out what I liked, what I didn't like. I went from, engineering positions at tier 1 automotive suppliers to even interviewing at marketing firms. And then I met with my co-op manager, and he mentioned that this place in downtown Flint was kind of opening up called 100K Ideas. So I guess that's a long story short, that's kind of how it evolved. And that's how I initially heard of the place.
Awesome. Excellent. So Peter, could you just speak kind of briefly to a day in the life when you were working with incoming entrepreneurs and people with ideas? Kind of what was that like for you? And what was your first take on 100K Ideas and what they were doing for the Flint community and beyond?
Yeah, so I guess my 100K idea experience So I'll even talk about like the beginning. So like Brandee said, we sat down for my initial interview, and there's me, an electrical engineer, or at that time a college student wanting to be an electrical engineer, sitting down with my resume, all fancy and whatnot, telling them that I didn't want to do engineering, I wanted to learn business. So I'm sitting there with Brandee and David, telling them I don't want to do what my background is in. I want to do something completely different, off the wall. So they probably threw them through a loop because they were looking for an engineer, and they're like, all right, what's this kid doing? He's not even wanting the position. But my position at 100K Ideas was half project manager. So I worked on binders. I helped different clients move through the whole binder process, and even in the later stages or next steps where we actually prototyped and developed and built their products and services. And that fed from my electrical engineering background, and even I have some background in mechanical engineering. So having the mechanical and electrical aspects to help brainstorm, to help bring their ideas to life, was really what I guess I provided value to them with, just a little bit different perspective. And I mainly worked on engineering heavy projects. So maybe they need something designed, and I would work with the other mechanical engineer on staff to really help think of it in just a different way. Because I have some background in 3D printing as well, as kind of a hobby that I've been able to leverage. So that's been very helpful for helping other people bring these ideas to something, napkin sketch on a napkin to, you can physically hold it and see it and feel it, because that in itself provides just, a huge step up from that napkin drawing. So, and I guess other really cool experiences that we've been able to have is I've been able to network with some really amazing people, both on the staff side. The staff there is just incredible, and as well as people that just kind of pop in. We've had, presidential candidates like Beto O'Rourke, Cory Booker. We even had Dr. Biden walk through our office a few weeks ago, and then like Brandee mentioned, Victor Cruz and some really high profile athletes that we've met that I did get on some scooters. So we'll get into what Kuhmute is later, but we got them on some scooters, which is always fun. And then other things, like I'm pretty sure the first week I started, I sat down in a pitch, and this entrepreneur was with a startup. He was pitching, asking for $1 million, and I'm like, well, as a broke college student at the time, I'm like, I'm just looking for $10 for lunch, and this dude's asking for $1 million, and I'm just like, wow, I hope one day, that could be me. So, and it's crazy how, a little bit of, a lot of hard work and a lot of caffeine and many late nights later, I'm now in that position, and it's a really crazy turn of events over the past, I think, year and a half, maybe 2 years. That all started really with, getting my feet wet at 100K, meeting some really great people, and just kind of snowballing from there.
So speaking of that, it kind of transitions us into our next phase of this conversation, and that is to talk to you as the founder and CEO of Kuhmute. So can you share more about that, and really about the company itself, and kind of what opened the door for you to decide to go for it? Yeah.
So I guess, you always have to start somewhere. So going back to when I first came into 100K Ideas, maybe a week or two in, I decided, hey, let's make a binder on Kuhmute, and just to see, is it worthwhile attempting or not? So I went through, created my binder that I also used as my thesis for Kettering. So I was able to wrap that all into one, and I was like, what do I do next? So next I built a prototype, because that's kind of the next thing you do with hardware. So out of PVC pipes and some wooden doors, we made like this weird hut looking thing in the basement of the Ferris wheel. And after building it, we were like, wow, this isn't really going to work. This form factor is not, really viable in any sense. It would take up the whole sidewalk, and, we can't do that. So, that's kind of how it started, is with the initial prototype. And then we were able to, just kind of keep iterating on it. We had some help from the Kettering Entrepreneurship Society. They were able to give us some grant funding to help, iterate on that prototype to make it suck a little bit less and a little bit less each time. And then we were able to go from PVC pipes to steel. And the first time we saw that, I'm pretty sure I sat in my apartment with my co-founder, Scott, and we just sat there staring at this steel hub. It looked kind of like the one in the background, but a little bit different. And we were just sitting there probably for 30 minutes, just like, wow, we have this giant steel tube in my living room of my apartment. What do we do next? So I guess after that, and then we were buying scooters at the time because, our thing with Kuhmute is we want to become the universal charging infrastructure for what's called micromobility. And to break it down, micromobility is anything smaller than a car that you use to go maybe 1 to 5 miles. So e-scooters, e-bikes, e-skateboards, e-wheelchairs. Like I said, the list goes on and on with different form factors. So what we were doing at the time is we were trying to buy a fleet of scooters to launch here in Flint to, help test our infrastructure, but also bring a really awesome form of mobility here to Flint where otherwise maybe another company wouldn't do. So I guess in that case, I had a phone call with the scooter guys, and we needed $10,000 in like 3 days to put a deposit down. So went up to David Olilla, founder of 100K, and I was like, all right, David, I have this situation that at the time seemed like a mountain. And he promised me, he was like, I will give you 1,000 of the 10 if you can raise the rest. So long story short, I went through the whole Ferris wheel, talked to about everyone asking for money to just loan this random college kid some money. And we were able to get all of it together, put the deposit down on the scooters. A few months later, we're rolling out our ride share here in Flint that we had going for about 3 months for testing. And we haven't put out yet, but we're going to later this fall. And really help test our infrastructure, test our assumptions, make a lot of really good iterations and changes on the prototype, and hopefully getting it ready for production. Because a few months later in December, we were launching with our first customer out in New Jersey, and that's a crazy story in itself. I broke down the hub, loaded it in my HHR, which I don't know if any of you know what an HHR is, but it's a small car, and I fit that size hub in an HHR, breaking it down. And then there's Scott and I driving 10 hours there, installing the hub over 4 hours, driving 10 hours back for an interview the next day with a kid that we're going to potentially hire. And, it was, and that was like, I think a day before Christmas. So it's just been a crazy ride of, all these different struggles, but we've been able to leverage all these really great resources within Michigan, whether it's just outside Michigan with Comeback Capital, which they were actually on that tour that came through Flint. And we actually won a pitch competition there and placed second and was able to raise some money from them. And then pitch competitions with the MEDC and Planet M. So the Detroit Hardware Summit last year, we were fortunate enough to place first out of a really, really solid group of competition. And then, like I mentioned, Kettering University, Factory 2, where we have warehouse space, and then really a guy that's kind of stepped up and really helped us, grow into our own is our main investor, Phil Schultz. So not only is he an investor, but he's a really great mentor for us, as he's really, really based strongly here in Flint. So he's just been an awesome guy to help really provide the bulk of our investment to get these up and running and all over the country and worldwide, but also keep manufacturing talent here to help grow Flint from Vehicle City, as it's formerly known as, hopefully what we want to turn it into is Mobility City. So that's something that we're working on, and really fortunate and blessed to be in a really great state with all these great mobility focused resources.
Excellent, Peter. So speaking of resources and mobility, that's a huge hot topic right now. Everybody across the country is getting involved in this. So why start and stay in Michigan?
Yeah. So I guess backing it up and why we started this is I met with a mentor, and what we were looking at before even starting or thinking of an idea or a business, we were looking at how do you take advantage of unfair advantages? And we looked at a few different kind of opportunities. One that stuck out the most was geographically. So we're in Michigan. What is Michigan known for? Automotive industry or mobility or transportation or transit. So with that in mind, I kind of went out into the world and started looking for issues and problems to solve. So one being, there's scooter clutter or piles from all these ride shares all over. So that's one of the issues that I saw in just about every newspaper and online article. And I was like, hey, I can create a hub that, parks a scooter or parks a bike. That seems pretty simple. It's not simple. Let me let you in on that. But the concept was simple enough. And we've kind of gone on this journey of, working with Planedem to help identify pilots and different grant funding opportunities, getting a grant through the Michigan Energy Office through 100K Ideas. That was a huge help in launching here in Flint and helping with some of the costs of the infrastructure of our charging hubs in the early days. And then, meeting people like David Olilla, Phil Schultz, Phil Hagerman, getting all of their really great connections and, getting connected with Comeback Capital, which is now one of the investors with us in Right Side Capital Management. I mean, all of these great peoples and groups, wouldn't have happened if I didn't come here to 100K Ideas and the Ferris wheel and start meeting with these really great people and getting their network to become my network and, kind of branching out from there and growing it. So yeah, that's kind of why Michigan was a great thing because, not only do I have all these resources, but you have all of the talent in the world with all of the universities. In Michigan, they're all focused on automotive industry because they're in Michigan and they have the big three and they have all the suppliers and the tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers. So it's easy to find parts, it's easy to find talent. So really it made just perfect sense coupled with the resources available to start a mobility startup here in Michigan.
Wonderful. So with that, Peter, what's next for Kuhmute? What does the future look like?
Yeah, so I guess future, so we're launching or relaunching our test fleet here in Flint in August. We also have about 10 to 15 hubs going up here in Flint, so that'll help kind of round out the charging network here. And then we also have some really large orders coming through. So we have about 150 hubs going out to New York in a few months. And then we have other projects in South Carolina, multiples in California, Georgia, and then we'll also be part of the Ford City One Challenge with their project pilot winner here, hopefully later this year. I know it got delayed a little bit due to COVID, but really excited about all these opportunities to where we can provide infrastructure, not only for shared fleets, but for personally owned vehicles as well. Because hey, not everyone wants to use a shared vehicle, especially nowadays with, just what's going on. So you can hop on your own e-bike or e-scooter, go grab a cup of coffee, and then sort of do that whole thing. So yeah, that's kind of what we're looking to do. And then maybe later this year, we're looking to maybe do a larger raise to help grow out and round out the team and help, iron out some supply chain stuff to make it a little bit more streamlined. So that's something we're really excited about, near-term stuff.
And for our entrepreneurs and companies and different people on the line listening in and joining us today, what would you share with them in terms of your advice, lessons learned, anything that you feel like is critical and has been up until this point? Yeah,
so I guess I have a few points on that. One, I guess to start off is find a mentor. I have learned from so many mistakes that I did not have to go through because of mentors. Obviously I still made mistakes and still make plenty of mistakes myself, but at least it's good enough to figure out and understand ahead of time their mistakes so you can at least prepare a little bit better or avoid them altogether. Because less problems, that's always a good thing. And then also really focus on finding your unfair advantage whenever you're starting a startup. So whatever you're good at, whether it's engineering, whether it's business, or maybe you're an artist or something, find something that you're really good at and passionate at, and then look at maybe your location geographically, or maybe your background is just best fit for that different product or service, so you should do that. So whatever your unfair advantage is, really take advantage of that because you're the best at that. No one else can be the best at that if it's your unfair advantage. So really focus in on that. Also find a really great network of people. For me, it was coming here to the Ferris wheel and 100K ideas and growing my network through the people here. For you, I mean, maybe you're not in this location, maybe you're further away, go find your 100K ideas or your Ferris wheel, and then, you know, network within there and grow your network and find people and kind of start your own journey. And then I guess one thing personally that I've learned is whatever your idea is, build a prototype. No matter how much it sucks, build the prototype. My first pitch competition, we built and we brought a prototype of this hub behind me to Ohio. This was the first pitch competition I've ever done, and there's me, this college student that's broke and had to borrow his mom's car to get to this thing, with a hub and a scooter in it, in front of 300 of the most powerful investors in the world. I messed up my slides. I accidentally swore twice on stage, not intentional at all, just because I forgot my slides. But yet they still gave a second. They still invested in us. And I attribute that solely to the purpose that we had a physical prototype. We were the only competitor or person pitching on stage that brought a physical prototype. So whatever you're doing, build a prototype. I mean, ours didn't even work. Ours actually messed up on stage and, you know, even knocked over a bunch of things, and it was just a mess. But the fact that we built something and physically and had it there spoke volumes to those investors, and, you know, gave them enough confidence to write 2 college kids a check for $75K. And it's just like, thinking back, I'm like, that's crazy to think that someone like me and Scott can get a check from these dudes that we don't even know or barely knew, just because, you know, we put some time and effort into building something that, you know, maybe wasn't perfect. I mean, it's nowhere near perfect, and it still isn't, but at least it gave them confidence in our abilities to build something, potentially bring it to market, sell it, and create an actual business out of it, rather than just putting together a PowerPoint and talking about all of these cool things that could happen. We actually made something happen, even if it was just a makeshift prototype.
So I have one more quick question for you. You spoke a lot about pitch competitions. Can you kind of elaborate on exactly what a pitch competition is for anybody who's unfamiliar and what you did to prepare?
Yeah. So I would say pitch competitions, they're all a little bit different, but they all have the same, I guess, core pillars. So things to think about, a really good resource to look into if you're potentially looking to pitch at a pitch competition, I highly recommend Guy Kawasaki's 10 perfect slides or something like that. So just to throw that out there ahead of time before I forget to mention it. That's something I base all of my pitches around. And really, in a pitch competition, say you get anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes for a competition style, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on the competition. And what you do is you'll obviously go on stage, you'll present your idea, you'll present maybe if you have some traction, you have some sales, you have a prototype built, like I mentioned, you'll present that, and then hopefully you'll win the prize, which is usually money in exchange for, maybe it's a grant, so there's no equity, or you give away equity in exchange as an investment. But preparing for this is a little bit interesting, and I've actually ran a few of my own experiments on how I prepare for different, even just speaking events and engagements and pitch competitions in general, because to me it's almost the same thing. The first time I pitched, I prepared a lot, and I tried to memorize all these lines and bullet points, and, you know, you're going through the note cards even beforehand, you're like all over the place, and then you get up there and you freeze, and or at least in my case, I froze, and that's when I swore, and it was a bad time. I mean, not to say that is a bad thing. You know, some people really like to have structure and like to memorize things beforehand, and that helps them feel comfortable and confident. And that's totally up to you, and that's something that you have to find out what works best for you on those different situations. As for me, It just took a lot of repetition, a lot of messing up. And then actually I found no preparation at all is the best preparation for me. So I just kind of go into it and just do it. And that's just me and how I function, just because now I feel like every day I'm pitching all the time, whether it's to customers, investors, city officials, local governments, all of that. So that at that point, that is my practice. That is my preparation is just my day to day. I live, breathe, eat, sleep, commute. So that in that sense, that's, like I said, my preparation. And you really just have to find out what works for you, whether it is going through methodically and memorizing different points, or if it's just, living out your life, and because your life is your business, and then now you just go talk about it just like a conversation, because that's what I try to have most of my pitch competitions or pitches or speaking engagements to be like, is more I'm talking with you than I'm talking at you. So that's just something to be aware of. There's many resources out there, but like I mentioned at the beginning, definitely take a look at Guy Kawasaki. He's a former chief evangelist at Apple. Great guy. He's in the VC space, has some really great things. Stick to 10 slides or less, minimal words, more pictures. And I don't have to go through all the formatting things, but definitely go take a look at his stuff. It's awesome.
Great. And Brandee, I just want to give you a moment to chime in on that as one of the resources that you all have at 100K for pitch competitions, if you want to just share quickly on that.
Yeah, so as we kind of touched on throughout the talk today, funding access is a huge barrier for a lot of entrepreneurs looking to get started. So one of the things we were able to launch in Flint in partnership with the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce, as well as the University of Michigan Flint's Innovation Incubator, Charles Stewart Foundation, and for August, the MEDC, which we're really excited about, is we've launched a series of pitch competitions called Pitch for K. And what makes it unique is we're able to give this opportunity for people in relatively the idea stage. So there's a lot of competitions that you'll find for people who are fully, established and have a business plan and have started selling and have like a lot of concrete numbers on their product or service that they're offering, but there's not many to help entrepreneurs who are still just kind of getting off the ground. So we established this pitch competition to really help those in the beginning stages of their business. But what makes it unique is we provide a lot of resources prior to their pitch. So we select 7 individuals to pitch in a live competition, with the next one coming up August 6th. That's going to be virtual, so that'll be interesting. But in preparation for their pitch, we put them through a lot. So they have to attend a pitch clinic facilitated by the University of Michigan Flint's Innovation Incubator. They also are paired with a mentor. So we do our best to pair them with someone within their industry. As Peter mentioned, mentorship is such a huge part of entrepreneurs and innovators being successful, just having that person to kind of bounce your idea off of, talk you through things, help you learn from mistakes before you make them. And so the goal from that is also expanding their network. A lot of people who apply for this competition and a lot of people we work with in general, they haven't met with anyone in industry yet. They haven't had a chance to share their idea or what they're looking to do with anyone in industry, and also not sure how to even approach that. So we're able to kind of just put them in a situation where they have that at their disposal. And then in addition, I think one time we actually had Peter do a pitch clinic for us, actually like doing his pitch and showing, hey, this is my pitch, this is what I do, this is what I've learned, which was really helpful for everybody that attended, to be able to kind of sit there and hear someone actually pitch, because that a lot of people also haven't attended pitch competitions that apply for Pitch for K. So we're really excited to offer that. And so we are able to give away decent sums of money to help people get started. And we actually did kind of just recently a check-in with all of the winners from our first round, which was last August through February of this year. We had 3 competitions and we did a check-in with all of them. And it was so great to hear the progress that they had made. And so a lot of people always have concerns like, well, you're just giving people money, like you don't have a way to check it. But I'm like, they've gone through the prep, they've gone through the work, like they used it like, we intended to. And they all, were happy for the opportunity, because also it got them, as Peter said, starting to live and breathe their idea in their business where they weren't before. A lot of them hadn't pitched before. So it definitely puts them in that position. So we're excited to be able to do that and continue offering it into this year. So we're very, very excited about that.
Excellent, Brandee. And measures for success, if you want to just kind of share quickly how many ideas you've received to date and a few other metrics.
Yep. So since we opened in November 2017, we've had 542 ideas come through our doors, which we're extremely, extremely proud of. When you look at, that's more than one a day. So we're very, very proud of that in that term there. And then from those 542 ideas, we've completed 435 assessments, which is kind of on target what we were thinking in terms of PB moving forward. And then we've also been able to complete 99 next step services / work orders is what we call them, for clients who are moving on to those next steps and, taking those steps to kind of continue to move their idea forward. And always an interesting metric we like to throw out is actually, of our ideas, 58% about are actually physical products, which is always astonishing when people hear that, simply because, especially, and for that group that came with the VCs and all the Congress people that launched 100K Ventures, that was really interesting for them to hear, because they were under the impression it was all about software and apps. And so what I think that shows is that's Michigan and the Midwest nature, that products are still alive, they're still kicking, there's still a space for that. And it also, I think, changed their mind in terms of what investment looks like into those as well. So we're really proud to kind of provide some support for that industry there.
Great, thank you to both. Just blown away continuously of all the work and the great things that you guys are doing for the state of Michigan. One of the questions I do see that came up was whether there were other opportunities closer to the Detroit area. And so, Brandee, you mentioned earlier Lawrence Technological University Centropolis Center. That is an opportunity. It's also a smart zone that is supported by is partially supported by the MEDC. That is an option for people, particularly as it relates to products and the like. We also have MEDC supported Tech Town, which is located in Detroit. They are also a business incubator and SmartZone, and they are available to help you from the start of your idea to the finish. So with that, we're definitely open to any additional questions anyone has, and any additional last thoughts from Peter or Brandee? All right, sounds good. Well, at this time, I am going to just quickly share. If you want to have receive more information on the MEDC, you can reach out to www.michiganbusiness.org/entrepreneurship. That'll take you directly to all of the programs that we support, and it will also include a map of all the smart zones and that are available in our network to you. And you can also check out our speaker bios by looking each of us up individually and getting our contact information there. I also want to give Brandee and Peter the opportunity to share, but really quickly, I need to, I'm being asked to share our MEDC website again. So that's www.michiganbusiness.org/entrepreneurship. And I'll be happy to put that in the chat as well. Brandee, would you like to share?
Yes, absolutely. So anyone looking to kind of get more information on 100K ideas, please visit our website, www.100, the number, so 100, the letter K, ideas with an S.org. And there you can see all the work that we're doing just from our day-to-day, as well as a lot of our community initiatives that we're working on. And again, that's www.the the number 100k ideaswithans.org.
Awesome. And if you're looking to get hubs or just curious in what we're doing, feel free to, connect with us on the normal, channels of LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or go to commute.com. So if you want to just go to commute.com, you can find us there as well, or my email is right up here too. So if you want to shoot me an email and you've got some questions or just generally curious or just, have some entrepreneurship questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I can get those answered for you. But thanks again for everyone for joining. And I think we're going to be answering questions. So don't everyone ask at once. I know everyone's just filling up the Q&A bubble right now. So feel free to ask a question.
Thank you so much, Peter and Brandee, again, for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to share with all of you, and thank you for tuning in. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Abraham.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandee, LeTasha, and Peter for this opportunity to learn. I didn't know about any of these things, and now I do. And I'm not even from Detroit, so it makes me want to go to Detroit, and it's great to see a lot of the good work that's being done in Detroit. So we appreciate it. This concludes our session, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your summit.
Thanks, everyone, for joining.